It ain't easy now. How could I move forward when I keep looking backward? I'm just standing still. How can I fight this obsession? Have I not learned my lesson?
Third Steel fans, welcome to Behind the Steel Curtain. This is the editor Dave Schofield coming at you on a Tuesday night. It's minutes after 9 p.m. We're almost in regular season form. This is the Scho Bro Show. It's not going to be what it is if it's not for, with me as always, my big brother Rich. Rich, how's it going on this Tuesday night?
It is going all right on this Tuesday night. It was a busy day in the land of the NFL, and in particular, it was pretty busy in Steeler country today. So we've got lots to talk about.
Yes, we do. And I said this to you right before we started. I'm like, man, I'm exhausted. I had a big day with a lot of different things. I actually was even also a guest on another podcast earlier this evening. It's one for the sports around the Philadelphia area, and they were doing around the NFL thing covering different teams, and it was the Steelers. So I was on doing that. Then I had this tonight. I had two breaking news podcasts. Luckily, Brian Anthony Davis covered one of them for me because it was 3 today, because we've got lots of news. But before we get to the lots of other Steelers news, we've got to get to some BTSC news. First of all, I've got to say, if you haven't checked it out, there was so much content on there. It's still on the front 6 articles, but I think it's the very last one. Shannon White has an article about the BTSC Redmond Award. For years, I never understood what this was. I think I finally got a grasp of it thanks to some people in the comments. I went in to read the comments just to try to figure it out, because I'm sitting there like, really? This person is better than that person or whatever? And it's not. It's really all about it's the joy of being a fan and basically overhyping someone. And who was the overhyped person who kind of gets the Redmond Award, where fans even get this fake perception of what it's supposed to be. I mean, I finally feel like I'm starting to understand what it's supposed to be. So that's really nice. But you could go check out that article, vote in the poll. It's really close between 2 players. If I'd have realized what the award was more, I don't know that I would have gone with what I went with. But that's so make sure you can check that out. But here's the other BTSC news. Oh, and make sure you check out Know Your Enemy tomorrow night. It's usually around 8:30 that one goes, because Shannon White and Jeffrey Benedict will be announcing the winner to that, and a little something special. I've got a little something special. I know Rich is just kind of waiting while I'm doing all this other stuff. Do you remember what I have something special here, Rich? Do you even remember what this is?
Shoot. No, we talked about it. Now I don't even remember.
It's the prize. It is that time of year. It is time for the BTSC Survivor League. Now, the article is not up on the website yet. There's a reason for that. Why? Because as I was telling you before the show, this is probably tied for the second craziest event of the Steelers. Not game days, but events. The NFL draft is its own thing. That's crazy. But roster cut down day and the beginning of the league year are 2 things hand in hand. It's just crazy days with the site. And because of that, we didn't want it to get buried there. This is more for you all. So I'd say look for it probably not even tomorrow. I would say on Thursday. That gives us a good week for the Survivor League to get set up. Sorry if I'm making a bunch of noise in the background. I'm trying to take out the prize. We have given away a signed football every year. Year 1, Marquise Pouncey. Year 2, David DeCastro. Year 3, Joe Hayden. This is year 4. And I like to go with a very veteran established player, so much so that none of the other 3 are still with the Steelers. But that's not going to be the case here. I'm calling it now. You ready? Because I have it. Oh, this is going to be hard to let go for me. Because he might be number 97 on the field, but he's number 1 in our hearts. Oh, Captain, my Captain, Cam Hayward. That's right. We will be giving away a signed Cam Hayward football for the winner of the BTSC Survivor League. There you go. What do you think of that, Rich?
I'm going to win.
Or we could be like Ali says, He wants the Kylo Ren helmet that's in the background here for me, which is my wonderful Steelers helmet. But that's very near and dear to my heart. So there we go. I hope you all can get excited about that. It's not easy to win a Survivor League. For those of you that don't remember, you can just pick one winner each week, not against the spread. One winner. One. If they win, you move on. If they lose or tie, you're out. And it's not as easy as you think. And once you use a team, you can't use them again. Last year, we went almost to the end of the season. We reached the point in week 15 where people had to make 2 picks, but we got it. It's great. So there you go. Ivor Mecton says it. Future Hall of Famer Cam Hayward. There you go.
Correct.
So I think that's a good one. I really do. It's got the certificate of authenticity with it. It's a little card. So make sure you're checking that out in the coming days. It's okay. So I think I did enough BTSC promo, right?
Sure.
Well, this show, I know a lot of times we'll start off with the news and then we'll get into our topic. Our topic tonight is the news.
Well, yeah.
Yeah. I mean,
there was so much going on today. We are the first show after all that's been going on. We got a
first live show. Yep. Yes. So, but the only reason I throw on the first live show is there are on our audio only platform, which if you are not listening there, you are really missing a majority of our content and some really, really great stuff. We had 3 breaking news podcasts. I did the first one, which was the trade for Malik Reid. Brian Anthony Davis did the next one to cover for me as I was writing 2 breaking news articles at one time. And he did Davis. What's the first? Jesse Davis, the trade for Jesse Davis. And then Brian and I did it together, had lots of fun. Man, whenever you do a podcast and you can compare Steelers or potential players to Stairway to Heaven or Islands in the Stream, that's a lot of fun. And that wasn't Brian, that was me. Make sure you check out our breaking news podcast on the breakdown of the Steelers 53-man roster. So, Rich, here we are. Whew. Crazy. The Steelers cut the majority of their players earlier in the day.
Yes.
Now, the way I understood that and the way it seemed to work out is that they didn't cut everybody before practice. They cut most of them before practice, but they still had to make at least 3 cuts. And it ended up having to be 5 because of the 2 trades after practice. So the first round of cuts was a lot of players that you expected to get cut with a few surprises. It definitely did. It definitely had a few surprises. So I'm going to try to read the names that were cut in the first round just to make sure we got it all. They were, on offense, William Dunkel, Adrian Ely, Chaz Green, John LeGlue, Ryan McCullough, Max Borghi, Kevin Rader, Jace Sternberger, Tyler Snead, Tyler Vaughns, and Cody White. With the offensive guys released early, what were your biggest surprises there?
Just LeGlue was the biggest one.
Yeah.
Which who was it on the Slack channel that said, what are we going to place him with? Duct tape?
Duct tape. Was that Jeremy Betts? It might have been.
It was Jeremy Betts. I think.
Yeah, because I thought that was really good too. Yeah. Yep. What's good? Because they're like, what's going to hold the line together now? Duct tape.
Yeah. So after that, I thought maybe Vaughn's was probably my next biggest one that I'd like to maybe see around.
I wasn't surprised because of how many receivers they had.
Correct.
Yeah. Yeah. And Cody White, because they've always really liked Cody White. But although we didn't see him shining like some of the others in the preseason games. Yeah. So that was the offense. So I agree with the glue. Vaughn's, but only because you didn't really know. I mean, Coach Tomlin talked about, he makes plays in key times, but you can only keep so many is ultimately what it comes down to.
Yes. And
we're going to get to, after we're done all this, we're going to start talking some Steelers practice squads. But defense, here you go. Here's I go on the defense. Chris Steele, Lyndon Stevens, Rondell Carter, Buddy Johnson, Hamilcar Rashid, Delonte Scott, James Valters, Carlos Davis, Khalil Davis, Donovan Jeter, Henry Mondeau, and Carlins Platel was waived/injured because he had surgery after the preseason game. All right, what jumped out of you there?
Not near as much jumped out. Well, the first one that jumped out at me was probably was Hamilcar Rashid.
Yeah.
Because everybody with he and Delonte Scott is like, what are we doing for outside linebacker?
Yeah, that was interesting, but that was coming down right. I'm trying to think timing wise. I'm pretty sure the trade was announced before that first round. Not announced by the Steelers because it didn't get announced till 4 p.m. Well, actually, Coach Tallman finally had to address it after practice when they asked. But all the reports were out about the trade. We'll get to that in a minute, where they had another outside linebacker. I wasn't shocked by the outside linebacker because I thought Hamilcar did not show that much in the last preseason game. I thought Delonte Scott played well. He had a really nice PFF score, but I think both those guys are practice squad candidates. I mean, that's where Scott was last year for the Steelers.
Yeah, you'll probably see a couple of those, at least one, maybe two of those D linemen potentially end up practice squad.
Yeah. So, but like I said, we'll talk some more about that. So that was round one of cuts. Then we had the trade for Reid. Then we had basically, I think we got the word on the trade for Jesse Davis about 3 or 4 minutes before the Steelers announced their final cuts. So the final cuts, the 5 more players that were then cut because the Steelers, they needed to cut 3 more, but they added 2 via trade. I had said, and I'll put it out there that I thought this. I'm like, this would be great. And then I'm like, come on, this isn't why other teams trade guys. I'm like, man, they're saying this trade now, but what if these trades don't go through until tomorrow? Then you kind of have that bonus thing of getting guys on the IR, which we'll talk about that as well. These guys are going to take up roster spots. But at the same time, the reason these other teams are trading these guys is because they need to clear the roster spots. So once I thought, took off my black and gold goggles and thought clearly, I'm like, yeah, that was dumb. So of course they came through. So they had to release 5 more players. The final 5 were Justin Lane, Marcus Allen, Joe Haeg, Trent Scott, and Anthony McFarland. By everything that it seems like, all of those guys were at practice. I don't know if they all were at practice. I know at least Joe Haeg came back, practiced, and talked to media after practice like he was still there, and then the trade happens and he's gone. There was a report that Justin Lane was seen after practice walking out with a garbage bag full of stuff. I mentioned that on the Breaking News podcast, which, it's kind of sad, but I don't know if that meant he was gathering up during practice or if it happened after practice. I'm not sure. But those are the last 5. What are your thoughts there?
Biggest surprise for me there was McFarland. I thought he had his best preseason. Like, I saw more out of him this preseason than we probably ever seen.
Yeah.
And so I thought it was interesting that after he'd had his best preseason, we cut him.
Yeah, but and a lot of that was in that first game. There was a lot going on with the run game after that. And I will tell you this, McFarland, where he had a very rough time this preseason was special teams. He wasn't
except returns.
Well, except returns, but is he going to be your number 1 return guy? If he's not your number 1 return guy, then how much can he help you on special teams? He was not good on the other parts of special teams. And that's why somebody like Benny Snell is hanging around as the number 3 running back. That's right. I said it. And that's kind of because Matt Canada slipped up a little bit today and said something to make you believe that Jaylen Warren is the number 2. So we'll get to that in a little bit. I was surprised by Joe Haeg. And when that rumor came out, I first put it out to the BTSC staff that I'm like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. If you've got someone you need to put on IR and you need a veteran that'll sign right back, Joe Haeg's perfect for that. But then the Steelers traded for an offensive lineman, and that changed everything. I'm still not saying that's beyond possibility because they only have 8 right now, and they're going to have guys on the practice squad because if one lineman's injured, you're going to have to bring up another lineman if you're only covering 8, because you need to have 8 on the roster to actually have a full roster. It's a free roster spot on Sundays, or sorry, game days. Not all game days are Sundays. So I was surprised Justin Lane made it until that last cut. I was not surprised he was cut.
I wasn't.
Yeah. In the last round, I didn't say it on the defense. I was a little bit surprised, not surprised, but I thought maybe there was a chance that Chris Steele could sneak on, because I thought he played well when he was out there in the preseason. And I didn't know how much James Pierre really played that much better than him. But I that's another guy for the practice squad. So McFarland was a surprise. Marcus Allen, the biggest thing with him, man, is just he just wasn't available. I thought if he stuck on the 53, I thought it would be to go to on IR, because he just didn't play in the preseason. So we'll get to that in a second. Let's go to Steel Dog 88. He puts $2 in the tip jar and says, my surprise cuts were McFarland and Mondo. Mondo was one of the first ones reported.
He was, yes.
I'm not surprised by Mondo, because my goodness, the Steelers are still keeping 7 defensive linemen, even without him. And name one guy on that list that you would think Mondo was going to beat out.
No, there's not a guy on that list I thought it would be out.
Yeah.
It's just, I just, honestly, at this point, I just can't believe how decent the depth is on the defensive line. Because, Mondo just, I don't know, it seems to be me like, when he gets in the games, he's either, he always seems like it's one of two things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Like every play, he's either getting manhandled or making a spectacular play.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Like Jeffrey Bennett really likes to point out, he's your pass rushing defensive lineman. If you can put him in and he's going to be pass rushing, he's a good guy to have in there. Yeah. Like Jeffrey's like, if you only need 2 and it's pass rush, you go with Cam Hayward and Henry Mondo. That's how much he liked Henry Mondo. But the thing is guess what else you can do? You can run on him. So that's one of the, to me, we'll get to even more stuff with him. Tyler W., $2 into the tip jar, says Tomlin loves him, Benny Snell football. Seems like they do. I don't know about seeing Benny Snell with many carries this year. We're going to see how it all works out. Rich, rather than go through the whole 53-man roster like I did on the that special breaking news one, we now have a pretty good idea of who's left. If you do,
yeah.
Who's your biggest surprise maybe that's still on the team? Was there someone that made the team that you thought might not make the team? Kind of putting you on the spot, aren't you?
You are, and I'm just kind of yeah, nothing.
Oh my goodness. Here, guess what? I'll stall for you. Guess what?
Okay, stall for me.
Here's what I'm going to stall for you. When I stopped reading the offense and went to the defense, there was a player that was there that I didn't start with him on the defense. I completely missed another what some people would say is a surprise cut, and that's safety Elijah Riley.
Oh yeah,
that they had just claimed off waivers, had him come in. I said the whole time I thought he was just auditioning for a practice squad spot. Then he played really well. So that was another one that I found interesting. So sorry if I missed that in the list. And then here, we'll go ahead and throw in this $2 from the tip jar. Kyle Smith, $2 says, hoping another OLB move happens to replace Tuska. If you look at how Tuska played at the end of last year, he was playing well. The Steelers have seen something in him. And if you're not asking a bunch of snaps out of him, Jeffrey and I broke that down in a Vertex earlier this offseason. He's actually a pretty good come in for a few plays for TJ Watt. In my opinion, I'm fine with Tuska being probably now the number four, because to get into a little bit of the trade, I hope you're still thinking about the answer to that question.
I
to
have
get
an
it,
answer to that question.
okay. Then we'll answer the question. Then we'll talk about the trade guys. Go ahead.
All right.
So the question was, set you up again. It was there someone who made the roster that you were surprised they did make it through?
Yeah, a little bit. But I understand why this happened, but it's still a little bit of a surprise because it was a surprise to see, Joe Haeg and John Leglue be cut and JC Hassenauer on the roster.
Okay, some people would even say Kendrick Green, but think about it. It's his second year in the league. He started 16 games last year. Do you really think the Steelers would move on from him after one preseason? My goodness, they are not the Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah.
In case you missed that, they released their first-round draft pick from last year.
Right. Today.
So yeah. Tate Boys, he has a great answer for this. $1.99 Sims, but since they kept 7 wide receivers, I get it. Exactly. That's my biggest surprise is that they kept 7. So we can transition that. We'll still come back to the trade guys. We can transition that to the next question of, so, bro, are there guys on this roster that there's at least one that we basically know that are going to the IR at 12:01 p.m. tomorrow? The reason I say 12:01, it's basically 12 o'clock. No player could go on the injured reserve list until and following the waiver period of final cutdowns if they want to return this year. So the end of the waiver periods for final cutdowns is at noon tomorrow. That is when teams will find out if they got a waiver claim, all those other things. But if they claim someone off waivers, the roster spot can be freed up by someone going to the IR. And that person, that since they were on the IR or on the 53-man roster through that time, they are now eligible to return for the season. So do you see the Steelers doing multiple players eligible to return?
Yes.
Okay. I'll let you start with the obvious one because we've basically who's the first one you think?
KZ.
I mean, it was reported he was going on IR. Some people think it was already there. But the fact he wasn't moved to IR was strategic so he could come back. And that tells you that they're hoping it's not season ending. Also, I should say, only 8 players can come back throughout the season after being on IR, and you have to be on IR for at least 4 games. Okay, so there's one. I'm going to say who I thought was a surefire, absolutely going on IR, is I thought it was Montravius Adams. And then the news came out that he practiced today. Yeah, then the news comes out he practiced today, both at nose and defensive tackle. Now, I will tell you this. It's not definite, but that's kind of smart. You know what you do? He missed all that time. You practice him today to say, hey, can you really go? Or should we be giving you a few more weeks?
Yeah.
So it's not out of the question for him to then be moved to IR. But I think it's not as sure as what I thought it was. Agreed?
Yes, agreed.
Yeah. Okay. So that's another one. Is there anyone else you think could end up on IR?
Maybe CA3.
Exactly. And some people were on Twitter said, they remind me, well, you think it's CA3, but he said he was ready to go if Coach Tomlin would give him the okay. Okay. This is simple. Why would you think Coach Tomlin wouldn't give him the okay? So they could put him on IR.
That's right.
Why would you put him on IR? Because you're probably not going to play him the first 4 games of the season anyway, with how much time he's missed as a rookie, and no preseason games, all those things. Remember, Martavis Bryant, he didn't play the first 6 games? He wasn't even injured. He was just inactive. So that was a potential for CA3 that whole time. The only difference to me between putting him in IR because he did have an injury or keeping him on the roster is his ability to practice, like run through things at practice. I mean, he can still be at practice otherwise, but that's going to be the question there. I think that's a good one. So you think it's a possibility? You think it'll happen? Do you think that's why they kept 7?
It would make sense that's why they kept 7, because then you could drop that back to 6, and
that's
bring
still one more than
somebody
last
back
year.
elsewhere.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Yeah. So I'm going to throw another name out there. Derek Watt.
true. We haven't seen him.
We haven't seen him, and we don't know why. We don't really know why. You know, he's just kind of a guy that hasn't been able to go and not really talked about. Like, I didn't even have him on my radar as a guy not playing this week because I didn't hear anything about him being out, but he was out there. Yeah. So I just don't know what's happening. I had Derek Watt as a candidate that he could have even possibly been cut to be re-signed to put someone else on. That's just me. So those are the potential guys. Okay. Now here's the follow-up question. If those guys are going on IR, let's say the Steelers have 1, 2, 3, 4, whatever you have, then they have the roster spots. You have two options. Bring back guys that were on the roster or get somebody else through waivers or signing a veteran free agent that's available or signing somebody after they clear waivers. Who do you think are some candidates that could end up on the Steelers' 53-man roster by this time tomorrow night?
Do you want my honest answer?
Yes.
No clue.
No clue? Okay.
No.
It was reported. This one surprises me a little bit. That it was reported that when KZ goes on, it's going to be Marcus Allen. That gives the Steelers a 5th inside linebacker. And to me, if they're doing that, it's because they love him on special teams. And if they really love him on special teams, I'm kind of worried that, you know, Mark Robinson might not get a helmet on game days if there's another inside linebacker. If not, otherwise, I think he's got to do it. So I think that's a possibility. That's what they want to do. I still like Elijah Riley as a safety if they feel that they need another safety. I really, even with KZ injured, I still like the 4 safeties they have.
Yes.
And Fitzpatrick, Edmonds, Norwood, and Killebrew. I'm assuming Norwood's going to try to fill that role that they were possibly going to be using KZ in, unless they bring back someone like Elijah Riley, who, granted, it was against more of the JV players, but he looked good when he was out there for the Steelers, which I think is interesting. Hey, I'm going to throw this up here because Kelvin Colbert, he said it first. He says Joe Haden.
You never know. I don't know.
I'm just going to ask you this question. Do you think Joe Haden is on an NFL roster by this time tomorrow night, whether it's the Steelers or not?
I think there's a good possibility that happens.
I think that's a chance. I think there's even more of a chance as cornerbacks go down during the season.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this. There's so much possibility to talk about. Anyone else that you could see? Do you think maybe a Joe Haeg, maybe a John LeGlue?
Yeah, maybe another. Yeah, potentially, because again, you were talking about how they're only carrying 8, and it's a possibility.
And I also don't think it would be crazy if there's someone from the waiver wire.
Correct.
Maybe another lineman, maybe another linebacker, either inside or outside. That could be something that's someone that they like to look at in the pre-draft process. But going back to the trade guys, I said we would. The first guy, Malik Reid. To me, he's your 3rd outside linebacker.
Yes.
He was the 3rd outside linebacker in Denver and therefore started a ton because it was Chubb. It was, in that whole situation where he was starting a lot, where he was injured. And he started. We watched him play.
Yes,
we watched him do a strip sack of Ben Roethlisberger.
Yes, we did.
In the first quarter of that game, it was the only sack that the Broncos got. And that was from a player who is now a member of the Pittsburgh Steelers. He had 7 tackles that game. So as I said on one of the other podcasts, if you play well against the Steelers, you have a better chance to end up one.
Yeah.
So I just from what Jeffrey and I were going to do a vertex on that, on Reid. What are your thoughts there? Do you think it looks like it could be an upgrade?
Yeah, I do, because to me, here's a guy that's been playing the third outside linebacker role and playing it well. Okay. We're not taking a guy who's been nothing but a starter and asking him to fill that third linebacker role and him getting mad and forcing his way out of town. We got a guy that's used to filling this role. So I'm hoping that works better.
Yes. Yeah. I agree. I agree that it's someone who kind of knows that role and does it fairly well. So but the thing is, if he's coming in, the last thing you want, and this is what I saw some Broncos fans saying, is that the last thing you want for him is for him to have to be your starter.
Right.
He's a Chris Wormley. He's a guy that if he's your rotational guy, he's going to give you good play if you can put him out there in the right situation and for a certain amount of time. But if you have to put him out there all the time, then he's got weaknesses in his game that could be exploited. That's the best. That's what I heard. So that's what Jeffrey and I are going to try to dive into.
That's
anything else you want to say about him before we do?
Yeah, we want to play him on our terms, not have the terms dictated to us.
Here you go. This was something I read from a Broncos beat reporter, had a tweet out there that one of the Steelers beat reporters retweeted. I don't remember either of them, so I'm sorry I can't quote them properly. But he said that they had a lot of depth at edge rusher in Denver. So Reid seemed like he was going to be the odd man out, but they wanted to do right by him. And they asked him, hey, if we can trade you, where do you want to go? And guess what he said? The Pittsburgh friggin' Steelers. You know, he wanted to go to the Steelers if he wasn't going to be in Denver. And the Steelers gave up a 6th round pick, but received a 7th round pick in return. They do not lose a draft pick. They only change the position of that draft pick. To me, I like it. See if it works. You know? So for that, that's good. And so right now you mentioned the whole thing of knowing that role. It's not even just knowing that role. It's a volunteer, not a hostage.
Yeah.
Gotta love that. All right. So then the other trade that the Steelers pulled off was for an offensive tackle, a veteran. He's 30 years old, undrafted in 2015 out of Idaho. Didn't even play in 2015 on a practice squad. 2016 got picked up. But I think the Jets didn't make the team, got called back to the practice squad late in the year. Then they cut him and he signed to a practice squad with the Dolphins. The Dolphins keep him through the offseason and through training camp. And what do you know? He makes the team and starts 10 games that year. And then basically started a ton of games all the time. Has started at played, I'm assumed started at every position on the offensive line except center. So in other words, he's Joe Haeg that's a little bit heavier. I mean, that's kind of what it looks like it is. So don't know if that'll work out. Jeff was asking me a question earlier today about, they talked about Pat Meyer's style of blocking. And, what if it's not a right fit for players or this, that, the other? And Jeff's going to be talking about that. Not tomorrow's Let's Ride because there's a lot to talk about everything today. I think that's maybe on the agenda for Friday and some things going on like that. Maybe this is one of those moves because they think this is a guy that might better fit into what they're trying to do. I don't know. I guess we'll see. Yep. Don't know enough about him. I just know that he's started, since he's come into the league, he started a lot of games. Not that he's played overly well, but he started a lot of games and at a lot of different positions. So we'll see how that works. Anything else about that?
No, other than just was interesting to see our new GM pulling these deals off here today.
Yeah. Yep. That's why I don't know what to expect tomorrow when it comes to the waiver wire.
Yeah, same here.
I don't know. I don't know what to think.
That's why my answer was, if guys go on IR, who they're going to fill it with, and I'm like, no clue, because we don't have anything we don't have any history. We have nothing to go off of from Omar Khan. So who knows what's going to happen?
I said this on the Breaking News podcast for the 53-man roster. One player I'm not surprised if they'll end up being back in one way or another is Anthony McFarland. That's a possibility. The Steelers have carried the extra running back, and maybe if CA3 goes on the IR, maybe that's someone who comes back. There are a lot of big name veteran running backs that were released, so Anthony McFarland might not be the most sought after player, but that's just one of those things. Because I know that was a discussion going on a little bit in the live chat. Whew. But I also want to say one thing to finish up what you were saying. It's not just the GM.
Correct.
Tip of the hat to the assistant GM, who's looking at the player personnel. Andy Weidel. I am very glad that it seems like, he's the one looking at these other teams and these other places and stuff like that. Along with Omar Khan to help figure this stuff out. I like that they're out there and that they're looking. I like that they're not just settling for what they have and things of that nature. So this team is far from finished because, let's see, I said far from finished. Let's say it the right way. The roster is far from set because tomorrow, starting at noon, is when the Steelers can also add as many as 16 other players in the form of the practice squad.
Yes.
Of those 16, 6 of them can be veteran players that wouldn't be your typical practice squad eligible, because it used to be only certain players could go on the practice squad. You couldn't have more than 3 accrued seasons. And things like that. So let's talk a little bit practice squad right after this super chat here from Blake Literal. I don't know if it's literally his name. I think it's Literal. We'll say that. $1.99. Thank you very much, Blake. It says, other than OL, what area needs the most improvement? Yeah, that's saying that you're him and Holland. I don't think the Steelers need big improvement at running back if they're going to have Jaylen Warren be number 2, because I think there's potential there. And if it doesn't work out, then you worry about it. I think they're set at wide receiver, quarterback, tight end, defensive line. They have more people than they could keep. Outside linebacker, the depth was questionable, but now you got to trade. Inside linebacker, maybe that's it. That's the only, corner. I think they're all right at corner. See, that's another one I should have mentioned. Arthur Mollett. That's someone who could end up on IR because he didn't play in the last game.
Yeah.
Any player that didn't play in the last game is a possibility to go on IR. So yeah, I would say inside linebacker. If you want to say safety because of the injury to KZ, I get it, but I would say inside linebacker.
Yeah, I agree.
All right. So practice squad. Any names jump out at you that you really expect to see on the practice squad for the Steelers? And I'm not even going to get into if we've said too many veterans or not, because I don't know exactly who's eligible for one or the other.
We're talking about practice. Not a game. Not a game. We're talking about practice.
Oh, I understand, but I will tell you this. The practice squad is much more important than it used to be 5 years ago.
Oh, yes.
Much, especially with you could have up to 2 game day elevations.
Yes.
That makes it huge.
Couple guys maybe thinking,
these are guys that can contribute. So yeah, go ahead.
Honestly, wouldn't surprise me to see Mondu back on the practice squad.
I would be fine with that.
I'll
ask you one along those lines, because I asked Brian this in the podcast. The Davis twins, are they an all or nothing deal?
Oh, you mean both or none?
Yeah.
Can
you sign one or the other? That's tough, isn't it?
They got to know that's a possibility. But
and which one would you keep if you had to pick one?
I don't know.
I'd go with Khalil.
Yeah. I was leaning maybe that way, but other guys potentially for the practice squad, like to see Chris Steele on the practice.
Absolutely, squad. 100%. I I mean, I think there's enough other defensive backs that were out there that I don't know that he'll get claimed on waivers because he's got to go on the team's 53. But I think he's a great practice squad guy.
I'd like to see Vaughn's on the Tyler Vaughn.
Oh, for sure. It's funny because I know some people are like, he's going to get claimed. There were a lot of wide receivers cut today.
There were.
A lot. So to think that someone thinks that this guy is good enough to replace who they have on their 53 or who they could get as a veteran free agent, it's not beyond the realm of possibility because I thought Tyler Vaughn's had a nice preseason. But there's still a chance that he could get thrown. Yep. As you say them, rather than say them all and then discuss, I'm just discussing as you go. You want me to throw one out there?
Sure, throw one out there.
Okay. Elijah Riley.
Yeah. Yes. Because I'm with you. I thought he looked pretty good out there against the Lions. He just seemed to read and react very well.
I did do the defensive PFF scores. It's the offensive ones that didn't come out because we had so much other news today. Right. But on he had the what? He was the second highest guy. Behind Minka Fitzpatrick.
Behind Minka. Yep.
You know, that's and not only that passed the eye test. I thought he looked good out there.
Yeah. Let's see. Who else am I thinking here? You know what? It's not going to surprise me this year. There's probably going to be a few guys from other teams.
That's how Derek Tuska ended up with the Steelers. He got signed to their practice squad last year as an original signing. I was going to ask you that eventually. That's why I was so far asking about these guys. I got one that I think is kind of obvious because we didn't talk about him as being a surprise cut in the first round of stuff, and we probably should have. Because anytime you're in your second season and you were a fourth round draft pick, Buddy Johnson. No, I projected him to get cut. I did when I did my 53-man projection with Jeff Hartman on the article today. So but to me, I don't think he showed enough for another team to want him on their 53. So that's why I don't think Buddy Johnson is done with the Steelers. I would see him back on the practice squad.
Yeah.
Okay. How about the outside linebackers that we'd mentioned before?
Delonte Scott
and Delonte Scott.
I'll tell you what, after the last game, I'd really like to see Delonte Scott stick around.
Yeah. Yep. Agreed.
I thought he had the look in the last game of his game was more like an Alex Highsmith game.
Yeah.
I thought against the Lions. So would like to see if maybe they could hold on to that and continue to try to maybe develop that a little bit.
He's another guy that struggles with the run. At times.
I saw him make a couple good plays on the run the other night, which actually is partly what impressed me.
I'm sorry. Game. What sticks out of my mind more than anything was the game you were at and that play you talked about where Devin Bush didn't come make the tackle. The only thing that obstructed Devin Bush was Delonte Scott getting driven into the middle of the field. Yeah. So those are others. So I would say wide receivers, Tyler. I still think Cody White could end up on the practice squad. That's kind of who he is.
Yeah.
He's just a tough guy that could come in and give you big guy catches and not skedaddler catches.
Skedaddler.
Yeah, we got to skedaddle out of here. Did you hear Coach Tolman say that?
No, I did not.
That was in the post-game press conference. Said he talked about the big guys making their catches. Then you got the skedaddlers making their moves, talking about wide receivers.
Yeah.
Love that. So got to use that word all the time. Got to skedaddle. Anyone else from the Steelers team that you think could be? I'm trying to go over the list. Oh, I'll ask you this question. I asked Bad this one. Lustin Jane, also known as Justin Lane. If he clears waivers.
Nope.
My question isn't would the Steelers bring him back? My question is, would he bother? Or do you think he's like, you know what? They drafted me here. They drafted me high. I never really got going. They kind of changed up how they were doing stuff. I need to go somewhere else.
Yeah, I don't know that the Steelers will look to do it. I think the Steelers are ready to move on from it, and he's probably ready to move on from the Steelers.
Yep, I agree with that. I think that's a big possibility. So, other guys like I'm looking over the list. I don't know that Joe Haeg is an offensive lineman as a practice squad guy. I just
No.
don't know. LeGlue, we mentioned him before. Chaz
Yep.
Green was there before. I could see him be there. Trent Scott, who was one of the last 5 cuts for the Steelers, I could see him potentially going there if he's not courted by other people. The thing that's interesting with with Haeg and Scott both being cut is they are veteran guys, so they can choose if they don't go on waivers, they can choose where they go.
Right. How about Kevin Rader?
Oh, absolutely. I forgot about Kevin Rader. Yeah. To me, yeah, Kevin Rader, because he's a guy that if a tight end's dinged up, guess what you're going to do? You go see him elevated, probably.
Yeah.
That's just kind of who he is. That's another one. Those are good. Yeah. Some of these guys you kind of forget about. That like, oh yeah, him. So yeah, I'm going back to check the list. Either one of or any. I mean, the 3 linemen that they picked up during the preseason, meaning once preseason games started, in William Dunkel, Adrian Ely, and Ryan McCullum. Don't know what the Steelers think there. They could keep any of those guys. Don't really know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that'll be interesting. We listed a lot of players that were cut as possibilities, but we'll see. So then you brought up the point, and I think you're exactly right. Outside signings.
Yeah.
Outside signings. I know there's Steeler fans that see a lot of names out there of people getting cut, and they should bring in this person. Like some of them are former players, like Quincy Roche was released. Q from the youth, 6th-round draft pick for the Steelers last year. Some various different names out there associated with that some people wanted in the past that could be, edge rusher, outside linebackers, inside linebackers, offensive linemen. Some people are like there. Someone said with Alex Leatherwood, who was released by the Raiders, he got a bigger contract because he was a 1st-round draft pick. So if you claim him off waivers, you got to pick up his contract. That's someone that if he clears waivers, then you think about signing. So those are all interesting. I did put out a tweet earlier today that was interesting. I said, hey, by 4 o'clock today, there's going to be 864 less roster spots out there. And there's going to be a lot of players released.
Yep.
Because of those roster spots. And it is mathematically impossible for the Pittsburgh Steelers to sign all of them.
Yeah.
Because every time there was a report of something, you could go into the comments and the Steelers, there would be at least one Steelers fan in there saying, oh, the Steelers should look at. I mean, almost, I stopped looking, but I was doing that with some of them. I'm like, you're going to see Steelers fans in there saying, this guy. Now, it's not the same fan saying it for every person. I just think it's funny because it's very, I mean, I would say it's rare there was an NFL team that released that would release anybody that at least a few Steeler fans didn't say, hey, the Steelers should look at this guy.
Hey,
so it's fun. It's fun. It really is. That's what part of being a fan is.
Everybody's got guys they like, right? The problem is the decision's not going to be on the guys you like or I like.
Yeah.
It's going to be the guys who the Steelers organization likes. Yeah. The coaching staff, the front office. Who do they like?
Yep.
So.
Exactly. Oh, there was something brought up way before the live chat that I wanted to ask you about, and then I forgot. So I'll do it now. Practice squad. Yes or no? Chris Oladokun.
No.
Yeah, agreed. Maybe if no one else grabs him and you want him at some point and you have a spot and say, oh yeah, he could come in and do some stuff that we need to see for a different quarterback. But like I said, I said it on Stat Geek. That's not the plan for when they released him in an early round of cuts that they want to bring him back on the practice squad. Because if that's the plan, that's a terrible plan. You don't release him early and think he's going to come back. It just doesn't happen. So It might be that he visited with the Chiefs today, actually. That was reported. So it's not like he's sitting back waiting for the Steelers. So I just don't know. Some people say wasted pick. I still say, how many times do you have all three of your main quarterbacks go through training camp and not one of them missed a practice?
Almost never.
Oh, yeah, that's rare. That's rare. So he was there for when someone missed a practice. And it just so happened to royally suck for him that didn't happen. Just kind of like it royally sucked for Mason Rudolph in the last game that the Steelers never got the ball back and he only had one possession. You know?
Yeah.
Sometimes it is what it is. So, yeah, just imagine if they wanted to give Oladokin one possession after Rudolph if he still would have been around. They wouldn't have got it. So, yeah. Anything else here you want to mention about the potential stuff before we get into our big question?
No, let's go big or go home. So
okay, so we're going to do our big question, and then I do have something else. I'm going to remind you all of our wonderful prize in case you were late. For those of you that are here live, of our wonderful prize for the Survivor pool. That the information will be out later this week on the BTSC. Behindthesteelcurtain.com, your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers.
There we go.
And again, and I also got a little personal thing that we'll share afterwards, kind of almost like Jeff Hartman's Heart to Heart for those of you that listen to Let's Ride. But big question. This is my question. Do you have one or do you want me to go?
No, you go.
Okay. I am going to say this. I don't care if it's somebody that was on the Steelers or somebody somewhere else. Here is my question to you, Rich. I'm going to ask you, and then everyone else will put theirs in there. And people have probably said this in the live chat all night. It's hopping. It's been a great live chat night. Name me one player you think will be on the Steelers' 53-man roster by their first game on September 11th.
That's not there now?
It's not there now. Give me one player that's your bet.
Okay. Wow. There's about 3 different directions I can go here, and I'm sitting there thinking, man, if I had to put...
Remember, don't answer yet in the live chat. You're waiting for me to put it in there.
If I had to put money on it, who am I going with?
Yes.
So you know what? I'm going to go who I would go with if I had to put money on it.
All right.
Marcus Allen.
Okay. That's a safe one because of the reports. I don't know if that report's going to be right or not. I don't know if it is really healthy enough.
I don't know if... Yeah, I don't know if it is or not, but I'm doing it based on the different things that he could do and his familiarity with, having been on the team. I'm going to say Marcus Allen.
You ready? I'm going to shake it out here. I'll go a different route. You ready?
Okay. Yes.
Anthony McFarland Jr.
Actually, he was one of mine for consideration as well.
Yeah. I don't know enough about other people that they could bring in, because that's part of the people. You can answer that, everyone out there. It's in there. It's up. It's up. It's so you guys can answer it. Wow, man, they were ready. A couple of them jumped in there pretty quick. So let's see what they got. Oh, you cheated. I'm going to bring up an example of cheating, and the only reason I'm going to do it is because they were the very first one.
Yes, this is cheating.
From CD. That's cheating. You get one. You don't get two.
You get one, not two.
So yeah, we have an extra big question in here because there's not a game this week. Usually it's going to be scores. He says Leglue or Haeg. At least he went with the same position group. In other words, he's saying it's an offensive lineman.
Offensive lineman.
Yeah. Kathy says Leglue. Stuart Luther. Okay. Oh, hey, Kathy, by the way. Stuart Luther says I'm going to say Golson. Goodson, running back. Don't know who that is, and that's okay. I'm fine with the Steelers adding players that I don't know their names. They've done it in the past. They've done it with the Keller Witherspoon. They've done it with Ross Cockrell. They've done it with someone, it's okay that they add guys that you don't necessarily know their names onto this roster because it doesn't mean that they're not going to contribute. Okay. Wes Hickok. I'm not surprised knowing Wes with everything. He says Eric Fisher. I knew it was going to be one of those offensive linemen for Wes, and that's not a bad thing, Wes. That's a good thing.
No, yes.
Okay, yeah. So there we go. Steeler Chick 46 says Tyler Vaughns. Okay, Rob Thytoff Thitoff. Well, I think it's Thitoff. He says John McGlue. Man, there's a lot of names I got to say. I got to say people's names and players' names.
Okay? Oh, come on. Quick complaint.
BF Bud says Tyler Vaughn. Steel Dog 88 agrees with Wes. It says Eric Fisher. Dion Eaton says Tyler Vaughn. I just don't see that because they already have 7 guys. If it wasn't for the number of players already had, that's the difference. Nate Van Slyke is LeGlue. Steelers Pittsburgh says Haeg. How do you say this?
Cordman Tommy.
Okay, very good. I was splitting it up with the wrong letters.
Yeah.
Because there was no spaces. I had to make them up on my own. Very good, Rich, for saying that right. And he says, yes, McFarland. Okay, Eddie B, yeah, you cheated. But he was McFarland and the glue. Doc Holliday says Steele. I was tempted to go Steele.
Yeah, another
to
one.
Me, Steele if Millette ends up going on IR.
Yep.
You know, but or I guess they could go 6 corners and 4 safeties if they really wanted to. That's not bad. Ali, Howard Species, yeah, I guess that's it. Says LeGlue. Stevie 2 times says JC Treader. He would have to renounce his retirement.
Yeah.
That he had. Was that the end of last week or over the weekend? Yeah, but you just never know. Devin Logan says McFarland. Reginald Rivers, thinking outside the box. Sony Michelle. Okay. There, you made up for it, XNEB. XNEB. Dan McCullers. He's still got the pictures. Okay. I don't know if this is an answer to the question, but I'll bring it up because Evan Gall says I'd rather have McFarland than Snell. That might have just been talking to my stuff, or I didn't know if that was his answer. I knew someone was going to put this. I was waiting for it. Thomas Riley, Joe Hayden. Okay. Outside Steeler fan says McFarland. Oh, one thing, quick thing about, sorry, outside Steeler fan, don't want to rush over yours, but I agreed with yours. You knew that. About Joe Hayden, there was a report that Joe Hayden shot down that the Steelers offered him a contract and it wasn't enough money. He shot that down. So there were some rumors out there that Hayden specifically addressed. I don't think he said there hasn't been an offer from the Steelers. So anyway, CD, there you go. I'm bringing you back up for redeeming yourself. Said I'll go Haeg. Okay, since you tried to go with 2. So very good. Alex H says Leatherwood. Okay. Someone else claimed that they were the first to answer, but you were not because you did it before it came up. You jumped the gun. You jumped the gun. You're not allowed to put it out there until we put it out there. There's a lot of people in the live chat. They might not realize that's the rule. So you can put it out there again if you need to. Kevin Brokenborough says Riley. Brian Blackstock, he says Hamilcar Rashid. Okay, sorry. You've got to.
You got to pronounce that like you live in New England.
Yeah. That's what I said on the preview. You got to talk with your Boston accent to get Hamilcar. All right. Right. I know we're answering stuff, but I like Wes's answer. Said, I won't be shocked if I'm wrong. Would be thrilled if I. In other words, if he's right, that's pretty good. Richard Adamson says Elijah Riley. That's a good one. Jacob Heinrich specifies Alex Leatherwood after waivers. Okay. Brian Harrington says Master Teague. He can't come back to the Steelers. Don't know how long his injury settlement was. I'm pretty sure he was a guy that was one of the ones that was announced as an injury settlement, right?
I don't know.
Because he went on IR.
Yeah.
If there's no injury settlement, then he's on IR for the year. If there's an injury settlement, then that means they're free to sign somewhere else, but they can't sign back with the Steelers until the end of that settlement, and maybe even plus 3 weeks afterwards is what I think it is. Felicia, hey Felicia, says Felicia. Carlos Davis.
You're a cherry
no. Oh no. I'm going to read the whole thing. I'm going to bring it up. This is from Russ, our buddy Russ. He says, what's up, Steeler family? Wasn't on for 2 weeks. Was in the hospital, but it's all good now. That's what we want to hear, Russ. That's more important than other things.
Glad
also. So I would like to see us make a trade for Tevin Jenkins for O-line from the Bears. Word is he wants traded. Think he's pretty good. Yeah, he's now. The Bears are now saying that they are going to do it, but we'll see. Gotta love Jerry Cherry's answer.
Yes,
Gordon Berry.
Yes, that's for Jeff.
Yeah. Let's see. Sherry Richards, she says Roche. Good to see Roche. Cue from you. Here was Nathan. He put another one in there. He was like, but I was first. He says, whoops. But it's Marcus Allen, is what he says.
Yes.
Do we bring it up?
Yeah, that's funny. Go ahead.
Yeti says Ben Roethlisberger. He was that, he came out to practice and maybe he got the itch. That's a pretty good one. I'm looking if there's just people are still talking, which is great.
Oh yeah,
a lot of great discussion. Like I said, someone said I was right that it was an injury settlement for Master Teague. Don't know how long those are. They usually aren't disclosed. A lot of people talking to Russ, which is good, which is what I want to see.
Yeah.
And Mr. Woodside says,
you took mine down.
What? Oh, you had one? Bring it back up.
That was that. The CD says it's going to be Brian Anthony Davis and BJ Finney Pants.
Brian Anthony Davis and BJ Finney Pants. Oh, I love that.
I joked to Kyle about that when we went to training camp because of course they have like jersey type pants that you can buy there. I told Kyle we could get him a pair to look like Brian in the BJ Finney Pants. Yes. Kyle wasn't that thrilled with that statement.
Yeah. Yep. Here, now I'll bring up the one that I had. It was Mr. Woodside. I agree. Marcus Allen. Jeff Lauderdale says Tony Jefferson. Do you know who that is? I don't know. I don't, and I'm fine with that.
Is he related to George?
No.
If so, I'm not sure who it is.
That's right. Okay. These are funny. Of course, Yeti says he's joking, of course. A lot of, oh my goodness. Here we go. Kenyon Drake from Curtis Jury. He did visit with the Ratbirds. We'll see what happens there.
He did.
Okay. Did I miss any other ones so far? All right.
Nope. I think you got them.
So, all right. So that's good. There's going to be plenty more talk about everything going on with the Pittsburgh Steelers, how things will break down. They still have to officially announce a starting quarterback. They still have to officially announce a starting left guard. I want to once again show it here. If you can still hear me, I'm trying to talk into my microphone. Show it again. Here is our prize for the Survivor Pool. Information coming out more and more leading up to the season. It is a signed football by one Cameron Hayward. Okay. I think it's Cameron Phillips Hayward, if I remember right. So make sure that you're on the lookout for that. Make sure you're looking out, vote in the Isaac Redmond Award poll in Shannon's article, and make sure you listen to Know Your Enemy tomorrow night with the announcement of that and something else special from that. Also, I just wanted to put it out there, a little special thing for me. Today was a huge day for me with all that was going on with this. But on top of that, I didn't know that it was actually going to be today until it was today. Over 10 years ago, when I kind of started my journey away from teaching and coaching and, into being a stay-at-home dad, the first thing that I was doing before I ever got into writing for the Steelers is I actually wrote a novel. And then I wrote another one to follow it up. But I wrote that novel when I was trying to see what to do to get it published. And I realized how difficult of a route that is, especially with someone who doesn't have a degree and has never written anything else before, to even get anyone to even read one word of it. So to do that, that's kind of how I got into writing about the Steelers and ultimately ending up at Behind the Steel Curtain. Well, to bring everything full circle, today, my novel is now available on Amazon as both an ebook and paperback. So this is a little bit of personal news on our family show. It's not about the Steelers, but one thing that is really cool is you can see the words Behind the Steel Curtain and the website www.behindthesteelcurtain.com on the back cover of the book under the author information, because that's a big part of who I am. So that's there. It's available on Amazon. I'm not asking anyone to do anything like that. If you are interested, it's a young adult fantasy adventure novel series. If you go to my Twitter, which is on the screen, STLR Superfan Dad, I have a pinned tweet about it. So there's actually a link there if you want to actually look and see what it looked like and what it was. So that's just kind of a little bit fun and exciting thing for me. So I'll put it out there. But what's even more, and it's because there's no game this week, it was a good time for this to kind of happen. But I'm excited about this roster. I know it's going to be a very different going forward.
You have multiple people asking, what's it called?
What's it called? Oh, it's called Ghost Warriors. Okay, so you could even go to Amazon and type in Dave. Don't type in Dave. You got to go David. That was my wife's suggestion to use my actual first name, and plus people could maybe confuse me with the esteemed British actor from the Pirates of the Caribbean series and Gladiator. Then maybe he wrote a book. But no, if you type in David Schofield Ghost Warriors on Amazon, you'll see it. I mean, it's just up, so there's not a lot of stuff up there with it. So, but that's a lot of fun. But this roster is going to change so much by the time we're here next week. And I still think I think it's even going to change after we have our show next week before the first game. So I'm excited. Rich, what do you want to say to finish up tonight's show?
All right. Just a couple quick things. So I got to throw out there again. I've got 2 home games that I have tickets for that I'm trying to go ahead and get rid of. They are in section 524, row K, seats 9 and 10. I'm asking $200 for the pair
per game.
Per game. So I have the Jets.
$100 a seat, man. That's a great. That's the friends and family rate, man. That's great.
It is, but it's really just kind of just needing to unload them. So
what are the two? What are the 2 games?
The Jets on October 2nd and the Bengals on Sunday night, the 20th of November. So if you're interested in either of those, probably the easiest thing to do is reach out to Dave. Dave will make sure we get connected, and I've got those out there. So I'd love to go on to the Jets game, except I am going to the beach that week. So
yeah, and honestly, I was supposed to be going to the Jets game in my seats, and then my brother-in-law, who I share tickets with, asked me then if we could. He had something come up that weekend where he was going to be closer to Pittsburgh, and asked if we could switch our games if he could go to that game. I'm like, sure thing, man. That's great. So so those are 2 good games. You know, Jets. That's coming off the mini bye. You never know if there's going to be any kind of changes for that game. If you know what I mean. I know.
Yes, I do.
Yep. So, all right.
The other thing that I will have to say to take us out, okay, is next week is exciting.
Oh my
Next week's show is exciting.
Oh my God.
Do you know why?
Because it's going to be football that matters.
Correct. Because next week we are previewing the Steelers opening regular season game for the 2022-2023 NFL football season. Can't wait.